over 15 years ago. Then the ride was at the other side, and I'm just having the singular opportunity to be with him again on set. I'm talking of engineer Chibukem Diara. Chibukem, I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you. Good to have you.
And I was sharing with Lilibet that
good to have you,
these were the men who championed when climate change was not even heard. Anything wasn't heard. It was on one of our shows then. And he predicted and talked about it, and I started calling him the evangelist who saw climate change. And ever since then, Chibukem has not come on any of our shows because he's been very engaged. So Chibukem, I'd like to welcome you.
Thank you.
So now it's a privilege to have him here right now.
Yes, Engineer Chibukem. He's a man of many, many, many parts.
I see why you're so excited.
Yes. No, when you work with people, iron sharpness iron. You understand? When you work with people who are sound, you know, everything around you.
Tano, you could actually pass for your brother. We don't have the same.
Yes,
I'm
Chibukem, my friend, and we've been in it together.
Okay.
So Chibukem, I'd like to welcome you home one more time.
Thank you.
Yeah, so quickly, we'll be looking at a very simple topic.
Plastic.
Ban on single-use plastic. And the people will ask, when we're talking about ban on single-use plastic, what are we looking at quickly?
Okay, thank you for having me, and glad to be back to DBS.
Good to have you.
Yes, of course, like you mentioned, in 2011, I wrote a book on the realities of climate change, which at that time was, the foreword was done by His Excellency the Governor, Emmanuel Udua, who was also a green champion as at the time. And what was the essence? The essence was to bring advocacy into the perils of climate change. And of course, which is as a result of inconsistencies in our form of living, irresponsibilities in production, and of course consumption of fossil fuels, which leads to emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and also further degrades the environment. That's what led to most of the flooding, especially the flooding of 2012 in Delta State, that actually killed quite some people and led to destruction of public properties and private properties there. One of the biggest perils we've had around here in the South was in 2012. Now, going to plastics. Plastics is a major challenge. As much as it is, it solves our problems, as much as it's a major, let me put it this way, product that serves all facets of the humanity. If you look around this studio, you find out there are quite some plastics on the AC, on the television, on the camera, even on the glasses that we're wearing. So it's a very important product. But at the same time too, it also causes a lot of harm to our environment, especially what we now call single-use plastic. So the question is, what is single-use plastics? Those are those plastics that you use and throw away. Mostly things we use for takeaways. Mostly things we like cotton board. We use it once.
Cotton board is a plastic?
It has a plastic on it, if you remember.
Okay, that's the plastic one,
stick.
because we have a wooden.
There's wooden ones now coming out, but that's also in response to that challenge. So people are thinking smart. But all those plastics that are the sticks for the cotton boards are actually single use, because you can't use it a second time.
Okay, now I understand.
Do you understand that? Also, we talk about stirrers for coffee. You know, there are stirrers that we use for coffee and for drinks. There are plastic stirrers. Talk about straws. That's the straw we use for your Chapman, for your cocktails, for your drinks. You don't use them twice. And of course, you remember recently there's what they call styrofoam. Styrofoam is when you go to the roadside Mama Put and all those street foods, you see they use that.
The takeaway pack.
Takeaway pack that is like a foil.
Yes.
It's called a styrofoam. It's a form of plastic actually. It's cheap, it's affordable, but it is very detrimental to the environment. So those are examples of what we call, single-use plastics.
What about flux? Would you
Yes.
Spelled out as a single use
You use because you don't use it twice. Except, lots of people use it twice, but at least I know that medically you don't use it twice. So it's a single-use plastic actually. So there are quite a handful of them. And of course, it's even in the hospitality industry, for instance, they use a lot of this, like the takeaways now. If you remember, we had a conference in Abuja, just with ITF conference. Our focus was, creating a new hospitality economy. In that, we were trying to delve into what other alternatives or do we apply into the industry that will create sustainability. Because we are talking about human sustainability.
Yeah. So you say single-use plastic are problematic. Why? Why are they problematic? Why are they hazardous? Why do you say they are bad?
Okay, first of all, in Nigeria, we produce, the estimates from the data available says that over 38 million tons of waste are produced in the country every year. And of that 38 million wastes, we have about 3.5 to 3.8 million plastics, 3.8 tons of plastics produced.
Okay.
That's a lot. And unfortunately, we are not able to recycle up to 20% of that. There are about 10%, if you see these outside guys moving about picking plastic, you see women who go about picking it for Zobo and all that. That's a form of recycling actually, because they're using it, they're reusing it actually. But however, you find out that even at that, the country is not able to, recycle up to 20%. So what happens to the plastics? The question, as you step out of the studio, you buy a bottle of water, for instance, plastic bottle water, or you buy sachet water. What happens to that sachet water? You probably put it in a dustbin, and the waste collectors, the PSPs, will come and pick them up, probably go to a dump site. Now in that dump site, what happens is either they are burning them or they're recycling them, but that's a talk for another time. But most importantly, those plastics find their way into drainages.
Yeah.
So majority of the reason you find flooding is also because the drains are always blocked. Now, don't forget that these plastics are non-biodegradable. That means they are not degradable. They can live for hundreds of years before they can actually degrade. So it becomes very dangerous. So when they find their way into these drains, they find their way, end up into marine ecosystem. That is like rivers, like beaches. That's why Lagos has a big challenge in the area of plastics, pollution.
Okay,
now,
so the picture on the screen is plastic. Those are plastic cans. They are being recycled. Yeah, that's the recycling.
Obviously, yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
They are picked up. Maybe I think that's a washing system before they can, because you need to treat it, and then that's what they're doing there. That's a form of recycling. So these things find their way into the. Okay, look at that. Okay, look at that. You find a lot of this in Onitsha, going to by the left. I think they're trying to clean it up. You find a lot of this in several areas in Delta or even in Lagos. Now, these things can remain like this for hundreds of years. Now, when they find their way into the marine ecosystem, they begin to disturb the ecosystem. They cause pollution, they affect marine habitats, the fishes, and there's also what we're now calling, what they call now microplastics. Now, when you go and catch some of these tilapia fish, you test them, you begin to see some traces of plastic in them. Even humans now. I read a research about a week ago where some microplastics were found in the faces, that's poo-poo, of a young child. Don't forget that almost everything we use to feed ourselves are plastics. The feeding bottle is a plastic. The water we buy come in sachet water or come in. So there are some traces that go up. So they also are harmful to the health. They are harmful to the environment. They are harmful to when you also burn them. Like in our houses, you pack all your nylon bags. Before I forget, those nylon bags are also single-use plastics. When you go to the market to buy crayfish, buy okra. If you buy okra from one woman, she puts it in a nylon for you. You go to another woman to buy another nylon. So by the time you spend 20,000 coming back home from the market, you have over 10 different nylons or more. What happens to those things? You find out that you are actually going to most likely burn them in your house or at the back of your house. So when you burn them, you're also polluting the environment.
Okay.
And then you're also producing a gas, nitrous, I forgot the name of that, a particular gas that goes into the human system and also causes some form of health hazard to the environment.
So let me ask this, these women that roast yams and the plantain, popularly called bole.
Yes.
Some of them use nylon bags to start up the fire. Now, is it safe for consumption? Because that fire is also what they use to roast the yams and the bole. Is it safe for consumption?
Well, we can't say it's totally safe. First of all, it's going to affect them because they are there where the smoke is coming out. They are contributing to the environmental pollution we're talking about. The smoke that is coming out is affecting them, their health is going up there into the atmosphere and affecting the ozone layer, and of course adding to issues of pollution we're talking CO2 emissions we're talking about. And of course, it depends also on the volume of plastics, because the moment the fire catches, we'll now be dealing with the coal fire.
Yes,
so of course, so I may not have that statistics to say okay this, but I believe that the more they do that, it also contributes to. But I believe that if they do that every day, it definitely will be affected. Go and test them. I mean, the people in the Ministry of Health can even go and run a test on some of those people and check what plastics has, or the pollution has caused to those women who do bole or fry akara on a daily basis.
Okay, Engineer Chibuike, I know you to be a man of many parts. But environment is your core. So this ban, which was announced by the Honorable Minister of Environment, is quite commendable in the sense that it's a positive step in the right direction, especially as the race towards the net zero speeds up. So quickly, can you just speak to this conversation? What specific measures has the Nigerian government taken now to ban these single-use plastics? And by extension, how is the ban being implemented and enforced around the country? Because the one that we normally use at the Mama Put, I was expecting that they would have totally expunged that
yes,
out of the circle,
system.
but we still see all of this. That means there's no serious enforcement in that regard. Can you speak to that quickly?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, let me start with just what happened last week. Last week, Tuesday, after the Federal Executive Council, the Minister for State announced a ban on single-use plastics in all federal ministries, departments, and agencies. So this particular ban for single use is only limited to every federal agency, either the ministries or the departments or the agencies, MDAs. The ban has not been extended to to Nigeria as a whole.
Okay.
Yes, the ban is not even in Delta. The ban is not in Enugu or Anambra. The ban is only in federal MDAs. That means if you have a federal, like the Federal Secretariat here, I believe they should be able to implement that. However, the federal government has also not come to announce specifically, the modalities for that. I don't also think they have also started any form of advocacy towards that respect, because it's a fresh policy. So we're looking forward to them issuing certain guidelines as to how that will happen. Because I also do not think that even the MDAs themselves are aware of this. I don't think most of the staff who are working in these MDAs, because what that means is that you're not going to come into that place with a nylon bag. That means that you're not going to come into that place with straws. So if there are restaurants that service the environment, that means those restaurants should not serve with straws. That means that they will not have to use the styrofoam. That's the one you're talking about for Mama Put. What that means is that anything like bags. So in fact, the truth is, if you're even selling bread, you're not even supposed to use those things to sell bread. I don't need to understand.
So how will you sell bread?
So that's actually the follow-up question, which is, how do you start up a policy without alternatives? Or without adequate sensitization or advocacy? Because this sensitization and advocacy is going to drive this conversation. You understand? Because the alternative is key. If you go to Rwanda, for instance, at the airport, you're not allowed to go in with nylon bags. They tell you. So what that means is that at the federal secretariats, you're not supposed to cross the gates or get into the building with some of this. So it's going to be a pretty dicey, given our nature to, to dodge this thing, given our nature to try to play games with all these policies, you understand? Now, styrofoam you talked about has been banned in Lagos. It's not been banned elsewhere. and the government gave them, I don't know whether it was 3 weeks or thereabouts for the producers, because there are producers who make a living out of these things. I mean,
Yes.
they don't come from the air. Somebody has set up a plant, a couple of millions of naira or dollars, set up a plant to produce some of these things. So, and then you don't have to tell the person to stop producing just like that. So I guess they told them, and of course they need to start enforcement. The question is, how has that been enforced in Lagos? I don't want to talk about this environment because it's not actually banned here. So people are free to use it here. And then also banning them also has to come with a lot of wisdom. I mean, you don't just ban because other countries are banning. You have to ban because you want to make a change, and a sustainable change, for that matter.
Okay. So what are the main environmental benefits expected from this ban?
A lot of them, the picture of them, first of all, is health benefits. The moment you're going to reduce environmental pollution or plastic pollution specifically now.
Okay.
The moment you burn, imagine if you don't burn plastics. Number one. Number two, you're going to also reduce. When you burn, you release gases into the atmosphere.
Yes.
You're going to reduce emission of gases that also are detrimental to the ozone layer and to the environment, to the atmosphere. Then thirdly, you're going to reduce the impact of plastic pollution on marine life. I talked about fishes in the marine.
Yeah.
You'll be shocked that if you go to the river Niger, that is very close here, or you go to any of the rivers that are around our communities where they empty some of these drainages, the flood will carry them. Rainwater will carry these plastics and end up in a marine habitat. So over there, they stay for months, years, and all that. So they begin to affect the fish in that environment. So you might also find out that some of the health challenges that people have also come from the consumption of some of these marine fishes and stuff like that. So the moment you reduce and I know you're not going to totally remove plastic from the surface of the earth, but the moment you reduce the quantity, for instance, we're only recycling about 15% or 10% in Nigeria, out of 2.5 million tons that are produced on a yearly basis. So imagine they're able to recycle, 50%. That automatically would reduce the amount of impact the plastic is having on the environment. Also, flooding, which is also rampant around us here. If you go to all the government, I can see what the government is doing. I mean, I came out yesterday along the Buzu Road and I looked at the drains. I see they're getting blocked. What's blocking them? It's not that the government hasn't done a good job by doing. They are beautiful drains, but those drains are being blocked by these plastics. You see somebody that is in a tricycle and he takes takes gala or takes something, next thing he throws it out. And they find their way. The wind will carry it and end up in a drain because these are very light materials. So the moment you have a little wind, it moves them forward and then it comes into a place and it traps them. So we also need to be responsible. The citizens also need to be responsible, because if we're able to manage ourselves, the moment you end up using a single-use plastic like nylon, look at what we're seeing on the screen, you don't dump it on the road. You hold it until you properly dispose of them. PSPs go around different facilities, different homes to pick these things. They can pick it up, and then the government can now manage the process of separation and the process of also making sure that these things are well handled and stuff.
In other words, there could be a translation of waste to wealth.
Oh, sure. Let me even mention that, now that you mentioned this, it's a critical thing, because even when we talk about banning, the government too needs to also see how do we intensify the creation of wealth through waste to wealth.
Yes.
I remember I had a partner from Norway who came some time ago. He had a technology called plastic to diesel. Plastic to diesel. So now the whole idea is that you produce diesel from plastic, and the end product of that is so clean. It's a clean fuel that does not affect the environment. Don't forget that we talk about the diesel is a fossil fuel.
Yes.
If you go to all our homes, almost every flat or every building has one generator in that place. Check almost all the flats. At least there's someone that has a better past my neighbor or a form of generator in that place.
Yes.
If you go to hotels, no hotel has less than 3 generators because of the power challenges we are facing now. So the waste to wealth is critical. So imagine us doing plastic to diesel. So that means going through a catalytic process that converts plastic to become diesel. It's all used in whereas in Germany, in Europe, Germany, in Norway. So the guy came and talking about it. Of course, that also for government to also begin to ask, because those kind of investments are not cheap. Those technologies transfer, are not so cheap. But it is so portable. I mean, the technology is so portable that you can imagine, for instance, a government house. I know they're powered by a form of IPP or something, or a hospital, or even a big hotel decides to power their hotel with plastic energy. It's beautiful. Look at the other ones too. Okay, look at that pyramid that's done with plastics. People are trying to do several things now, including doing artworks.
Is this done with plastic as well?
Yes,
this is interlock.
That's interlock. Maybe they did that with plastic. I don't know, but that's interlock. But I saw the pyramid there. Now, people are now using plastics to build houses in certain African countries.
Yes.
People are using plastics to do some form of attire.
Yes.
People are using plastic to do artwork. I mean, it's becoming interesting. So it's for our young people too, because these days we find less young people getting involved. I want to encourage our young people here, see how you can get involved. I mean, this is already a global issue. You could do artworks with plastics and people will get excited. People, even in the tourism industry, people will come to visit. People can even pay tickets to come and see what you're doing. But the first thing is to begin, a startup process where innovation thrives, and then people will buy. So plastic to wealth is critical and is very, very important.
Okay, a follow-up to that quickly. How does Nigeria's approach now to banning of the single-use plastics as compared to other countries' strategies, so to speak? Yeah.
Okay, I mentioned earlier the single-use ban or single plastic use ban was just done last week. So of course, even the modalities for implementation or for monitoring and evaluation is let's say it's too early to be able to do that, because you also need to get the people that are in those MDAs to adjust to it.
Yeah.
You need to do a lot of advocacy, maybe from the Federal Ministry of Environment. I believe they're being proactive about it, so because they understand the implication. And don't also forget that this single-use plastic ban is also as a result of the last Conference of Parties that held in Dubai. It's a part of Nigeria's commitment towards reducing plastic pollution. So it's a strategic move, I believe. So, but the question now is, how do they get it to be done well and appropriately, so that it doesn't affect the businesses as well as the citizens? So comparing them to other countries, we are new in terms of banning single-use plastics. I mean, like that has been done now. Lagos has done their ban a few months back. We need to also get a feedback. There's no clear feedback yet whether that ban is working. But let me compare with Rwanda. Rwanda, since it's more than over 10 to 15 years, where they banned 9 plastic bags. Yes, I'm sure it's plastic bags, because people who transit through airports come with a lot of transit bags. When they come from Dubai, come from different countries, they stop in Kigali, and they leave those bags behind. So what the government has done is this: because there's a ban, when you get to the airports, they warn you, they remind you that they don't have this, because it comes with a fine, it comes with some prison jail terms. Yes, yeah, that's how
that's
yeah.
serious.
So what that means is that the moment you come into the city, your purchases has to be done with paper bags, normal paper, paper, like the paper that we use. So because now you go into paper is degradable. The moment you leave your paper on the rain, it disappears, because the rain will beat it, and that is the end of it. So you can use paper bags to do your bread. ShopRite at some point started doing paper, packaging for their bread. I think they stopped that. Maybe it wasn't sustainable as a matter. I remember ShopRite does that at some point, so I hope they can go back to that. Urban stores and big stores like that across the country need to begin to look at this, because their bread also uses single-use bags. Those things are also causing, but that may be the cheaper alternative.
Yeah, because even for our popcorns, they use a paper.
Popcorn, they use
yes,
paper.
the paper.
Bag.
Yes.
It's
more, it's fashionable actually. They too don't. It's fashionable. Even though the popcorn now they are still using nylon. I mean, the cheaper ones are
the roadside.
The roadside ones, but those roadsides, they consume a lot of it. Funny thing. You'll be shocked that those roadsides are a major. Look at the styrofoam. Can you go to a pleasant restaurant or a classic restaurant and see a styrofoam? You can't see it. Probably will see a takeaway that you want to keep.
Yes.
We used we were in I was in Lagos, Abuja Continental recently for a conference and stuff. So they gave us, there was a takeaway that we used to pack food. Beautiful. We still have that takeaway. So you can't classify that as a single use because you have a lot of use for it for years possibly. So that's what we're talking about. Instead of us, buying something we can just dispose of immediately, we can have something we can look at water bottle, for instance. Simple as that. I expect too that the people in the MDAs should begin to buy water bottle from your home. You fill your water. It's even safer. We're talking about cholera. Listening to how you guys talking about cholera.
Yes.
Now, the moment you pick your water from your house, you're sure what you're drinking. I've been to some of these pure water processing companies. Their hygiene is whack. The personal hygiene of the staff working, their hair not covered, some of them are dirty. If you look at them, you won't even take it. So you see that you're also risking yourself in this season of cholera, of not having, potable water.
Yeah.
So when you pick your water from your house, probably boiled water, fill your container. You give it to your kids, filled, and they drink it, you're sure of your water source. By that, you're sustaining the issue of reducing plastic pollution. Some families buy sachet water for their kids every day. They are contributing dangerously. Buy a bottled water for them. Ashley Queens should come out with buy bottled water. I mean, like what we call it, those water bottle. That has that fanciful. Some of them are plastic, some of them are metallic, silver-like. The moment you have your water, come to your office, drop some on the tables like this. We consume them, and we are excited about them. So Rwanda has been successful. There is also the challenge of people, the citizens of Rwanda, who smuggling these things from the side. Yes, they do. I mean, it happens everywhere, especially where you don't have strong enforcement. They still arrest them, they still find them, they still jail them. But especially in the rural communities, you know what I mean? In the city center, enforcement is usually easier. So comparing Nigeria, it will be too early to compare Nigeria because our own ban of single use is just in the MDA. So we'll give them 6 months and see how the MDAs are faring. That's what I suggest now.
So this water, the pure water, is it safe to drink from that pure water? That the pure water.
Yes, the sachet water.
The sachet water. Yes.
Now,
is it actually safe?
Well, to the extent that NAFDAC has said it's safe. That's what I would say. But we know that if you dig deeper, but let me also say something, please. It doesn't mean that PET bottles like Coca-Cola, the ones we use for Coca-Cola, but they are all safe. They've all been, they've been treated to the point where they're safe for consumption.
Okay.
So they don't have a real challenge in terms of health. What we are talking about is its major contribution to the environment. The research of microplastics is beginning to come out. Okay, there must be some traces of these plastics that come out, but also it depends on the particular plastic. Like I said, you use plastic for creams, you use plastic for all manner of eye drops, for all manner of medicine. So to the extent that NAFDAC approves these things, I believe they're safe.
So what impact now will this ban have on jobs in the plastic manufacturing industry? What impact will they have? They have to shut down production. Are there emerging opportunities in alternative materials and recycling industries?
That's an interesting question. That's why even before any ban, you must be able to go into advocacy. You must be able to invest into technologies. Okay. You must be able to allow technologies to move from foreign countries into Nigeria. Our local universities, research institutions, young people need to start thinking fast. This is a whole business opportunity. In the book I wrote in 2011, I said climate change is a pot of gold. Then we're really not talking about plastic so much. Now you can see we have taken out plastic, it becomes an element of conversation. I did an article, a follow-up article on Tuesday, the very day that policy on plastic ban came, and I said, it's still a pot of gold. So imagine that you're banning the whole MDAs in Nigeria, and you're banning the use of plastic bags, banning the use of straws and all that. What alternatives are you providing? Don't forget that these MDAs have high-level executives who will even be affected by this. Imagine walking into the commissioner and the minister's office and you can't find water to drink with decent water. Of course, they're going to go into dispensers now, maybe stuff like that. I mean, there are also better alternatives, as a matter of fact, in bottles, the glass bottles. Those ones are also very sustainable, so it's also recommended. Even some hotels are now using glass bottles, to be able to use. They refill it for you every morning, but that's of course in some South and East African countries. Nigeria is still, hyping with plastics.
They will break all the bottles before
So
morning.
back to your question, no, they won't break them. These are, who breaks bottles actually? These are responsible people.
Mistakenly.
It's going to be rare. I mean, of course, it can happen, but it's going to be rare. For instance, how many people really break grass cups, even in bars?
In bars? Try.
No, but the truth is
They
this.
do.
We have
Even
those
bottles, they
those,
break in
those
bars.
breakages happen, but it's going to be a more responsible regulated thing. So it's not going to be the reason for us not to do that.
Okay.
Now, in terms of job losses, there are going to be job losses, except if we begin to look at alternative sources of alternative technologies. For instance, I mentioned about plastic to diesel. We talked about the paper packaging. Now, paper packaging.
Yeah.
We talked about also recycling. Recycling is a major way to also reduce plastic pollution. So what we need to do is, are there recycling plants? Can we increase the number of recycling plants? Can individuals, invest in recycling plants? Can government also give subventions to individuals to invest in plastic recycling plants? Can we encourage, products that are reusable? Do you understand that? So with that, you begin to see that the job losses will be minimal. As I speak to you, the styrofoam business in Lagos would have gone there because they would have closed shop. Some of them has moved. I'm sure. I'm not too sure, but I can bet it that one or two of them would have moved to Delta or back to Onitsha from Lagos, because we don't have these bans in place. I'm not saying this government here should go and ban them, but I'm saying that the important thing is create alternatives so that these job losses, which are huge, and don't forget that the value chain of the plastic industry is massive.
Yes,
It's
very
massive. So you don't play with it because of the economy. So it is something that has to be done responsibly. And before I forget, there's a policy the federal government of Nigeria came up with, what they call the extended use policy.
Okay.
I think I'm by the Senate. So the whole idea is that policy was to encourage manufacturers and producers of plastics to consider a life cycle assessment of their plastic use and possibly consider what happens to it after. You don't just produce and push into the market. For instance, Coca-Cola, I know for sure, is going into a lot of advocacy and a lot of programs and projects to support recycling and reuse of plastic products, because Coca-Cola is a major consumption of plastics through Coca-Cola, the water, Everwater, all the products they have in Coca-Cola cycle. So they are really investing in that area, because it will be difficult for you to say you're not going to have a pet Coca-Cola. So what they're doing now is to encourage and to invest in some form of innovation and production that will sustain, the environment without polluting it further than this. So innovation, investment is key, and government policies that are friendly to this regard is also key. Tax waivers. I want to also suggest something that is important. I mean, for these equipments are quite costly. These equipments do not come easily. These technologies.
Okay, the recycling equipment.
No, recycling equipment, alternative technologies.
Okay.
You're talking about alternative technologies. What do we use in place of styrofoam?
Okay.
What do we use in place of stirrers? What do we use in place of straws? Do you understand that? So you have to think, so those technologies are not going to be cheap. We're talking about plastic to diesel technology. It's not going to be cheap. You understand? So the government needs to also look at waivers for equipments, waivers for technology transfers and stuff like that. That will help for innovation to come up and for people to begin to produce locally.
All right, so quickly now, moving forward from this conversation, what are the main challenges now faced in the implementation of this ban, and how are these challenges being addressed by government and other stakeholders?
Well, the part of the challenge would be, like I mentioned before, it's an evolving ban. The ban on single-use plastic is evolving. So part of the challenges, I believe, would be awareness. Are people aware of it? I mean, you can pick up your phone and call someone at the Federal Secretariat here. Do you know that they are banning single plastics? I mean, you could do that sample. I mean, you can go to the Federal Ministry of Federal Secretariat here in Manam Road and do that. So that will give you an idea if they are aware. So awareness is going to be a major information. So there needs to be a proper curation of the messages, of the communication materials that will go to these ministries. I commend the ban because you can see it's activating this conversation. And a lot more people are beginning to see that. So it's an interesting thing. But however, the implementation, the advocacy must be intensified. Now, secondly, in terms of alternatives, that's also where I see challenge. You're telling me not to buy bread in nylon bags. Where do I buy it from? Is paper cheap? How much is a ream of paper now? Paper has gone to the roof, for instance. So it's also, the alternative is not cheaper. So that's another challenge. The other challenge is also funding. How do you get money to import your equipment? Most of these equipments are imported. How do you get your money to import your equipment? How do you get the partnerships to trust you? I also see the issue of ease of doing business as a problem. I mean, the level of trust in Nigeria, yes, is improving, but it has not gotten to that point where people want to invest so much in such risky environment. We have the population, we have the people, so the potentials are high. But is the environment sustainable? Is the environment going to make it easy for you? I mean, for you to be able to thrive. So even for us as Nigerians to do such investments, is it also cool for us to be able to set up the business without so much tax? So that's why I talked earlier on. There's a need for government to look at investment in such areas and give tax holidays until such a business, maybe a couple of years, picks up, because this is where the future is going to.
That's the next generation.
Yes, definitely.
That's where the future is going to. I think I like that. That's what you've just said. That's where the future is going to be. Because we're talking about desilting in Delta State. This morning we were looking at what the papers actually have, and our analyst was saying, are we going to be having an annual desilting? And all this as a result of waste from the corn, from the plastic, one ban use and all of that. And so I think for me that's a moving slug. That's where the next generation is actually moving
headed.
To. Okay.
So what's the long-term goals, or what are the long-term goals of Nigeria regarding plastic waste management?
I think, well, I may not be able to, but I can try to, project. The government, especially the government in power now, is putting a lot of focus on plastics, or not just plastics, on environmental preservation. In fact, let me say this, any state government, any subnational government, any local government, any federal agency that does not take this seriously, it shouldn't be in government. So, but with what happened in last that happened in the Conference of Parties conference that happened in Dubai, where you had the president lead a high delegation of people to Dubai to be able to to discuss issues of climate change and environment. So you can see there is a level of seriousness.
Yes.
So with this seriousness now that is showing up, the enabling policies, a long-term goal will require the enabling policies and communicating these policies.
Yes.
Like I talked about the extended plastic policy, which is for manufacturers of these products. What level of advocacy is there for them to even know that they should do this? Do they even understand what they should do to be able to contribute towards the reduction of plastic pollution?
Yeah.
Now, also awareness and responsible actions. What we call, part of the SDG is what you call responsible consumption and production. Now, how do we consume responsibly and how do we produce? So there needs to be a level of knowledge starting from even the primary school. Do you understand? Are your kids aware that plastics are? So there must be some level of advocacy starting from the homes, from the informal system to the formal system, then to the government. So these steps by steps will help. And of course, government also communicating developments in terms of this is where we are. As at today, we're still talking about 2.5 million tons of. By next year, should they come to 2 million or 2.3 tons? Stuff like that. So communication is key. Yeah. Responsible consumption is key. Responsible production is key. And above all, it's a concerted effort that all of us must be part of.
Thank you so much, Chibukem. You're actually a delight to actually be with, and I just wish we had gone on and on and on.
Thank you.
We need to stop the ride at this particular moment. We've been speaking extensively with Engineer Chibukem Diarra, MDCO, Sustainable Ecosystems, a man of many parts, And we'd like to thank you. You've spoken on the ban on single-use plastic. Well, I'd like to say we'll invite you again, because this is not going to be a one-stop. This is part of our own advocacy as far as pushing it into the next generation. Thank you for coming. We'll do it again same time when we invite you. All right, this is where the ride terminates at this point. Lilibet, yes, we must go.
Of course, we must go. Well, as we celebrate the first day in the month of July, please do well to